Let's pray together in a word of prayer. Lord, we come before you this morning in this time of worship, considering yet another king of Israel, King Solomon, known for his wisdom and his ways of judging right from wrong. We pray this morning that as we celebrate Mother's Day and consider these stories, that you would guide our discernment and our understanding. Help us to become more wise as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Well, as has been mentioned, today is Mother's Day, and so that means this last week was a week of getting ready for Mother's Day, right? Well, for me, I was a little bit behind the curve this year. The deadline was coming, and I really did not know what to get Beth for Mother's Day. Until she happened to say that she'd like to have some cushions for our wicker porch furniture at home. So on Monday, I had the day off, and I needed to run up to Huntsville anyway because I needed to get some supplies for the pizza oven. And that gave me an excuse to be out and to run some errands without her with me. So on the way back, I stopped at Big Lots and took a look at what they had there, but it just didn't quite match the pattern I was looking for. It was a little more than what we needed. So then I went on over to Lowe's. And while I was there, I got some an animal spray that she wanted for a craft that she was doing. And I took a look at the dryers because ours was on the fritz. And then I went out to the garden department and found what I was looking for. I even had bumped into Elaine and Lee and Tisa, who kind of affirmed my choice in cushions for Beth. Went out, paid for them, and then I put them in the van. We have a town and country van where it says stow and go seating, so since the seats were up, there's little compartments underneath. So I was trying to think, where am I going to hide these cushions until Mother's Day so Beth doesn't find them? So I put them down inside those compartments inside the van, headed home. Gave Beth her enamel spray, told her about the dryers. Well, of course, since our dryer was on the fritz, she was very anxious to go check out the dryers that I'd seen at Lowe's. So that afternoon we went back to Lowe's and we took a look at the dryers. We found one that was a slightly used dryer, good condition, a little bit discounted because of that, and went ahead and decided on that. And we were reminded on the way out of the store that the dryers do not come with the plugs. So we had to get a plug, but I could not remember for sure which outlet we had to know which plug we needed. So we went ahead and grabbed both because that way when it came the next morning, we'd know for sure we have it, we can return the other one. So went to the counter to pay, decided to use their 18-month same as cash payment plan, took out one of their credit cards, put it on that, and she informed me when I did that, now when you bring this cord back afterwards to return it, you're not going to be able to have this credited back to your account. It's just not the way it works. They're going to have to give you a Lowe's merchandise card instead. Wasn't really my preference, but I thought, well, I can live with that, that's all right. Well, I thought that until I began thinking more about the situation and thought I might have found a loophole, a way to get around that. And I wonder if that's a little bit what happened with King Solomon as well. That in the midst of his wisdom and all his circumstances, that he thought he could get away with more than he could. That he tried to pull one over on God when it didn't really work that way. But perhaps we should step back first and think more fully about who Solomon was. We know, as was mentioned in the children's story, that he is the son of King David and Bathsheba, who we reflected on last week. He was the one who God had said would be able to build the temple. David could not build the temple, even though he had thought of it, even though he gathered all these supplies, even though he had the plans, because he was a man who was a warrior who had shed blood. He was not the one who was going to be able to build the temple. Instead, his son Solomon would. Solomon would be king, or would be. For a moment there, it didn't look like he would, because another one of David's sons, Adonijah, the one born after Absalom, decided to make a play for the throne first. He gathered around these chariots and soldiers to create a following. He had Joab, the general of David's army, and others who came behind him and supported him in this claim for the throne. He went and he sacrificed sheep and cattle and fatted calves and prepared to take the throne of David. But Nathan, the prophet, went to Bathsheba and said, "Do you know what is going on? Adonijah has gone and made sacrifices, and he has followers, and he is going to take the throne. Your son Solomon will not be able to take it then, and your life will be at risk. You need to go before King David remind him of the promise that he made that your son Solomon would be the next king. And let him know what's going on. And as you're talking to him, I'll come in as well and I'll corroborate the story. And that's what they did. Bathsheba went before David. She lay prostrate before him and asked him to remember the promise that he had made, that her son Solomon would be the next king of Israel. And she asked if he knew what was going on around him. Remember, at this time, he was very old. He was near death. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know what Adonijah, his son, was doing. And she reminded him that all of Israel is watching. They're watching to see who will be the next king, and they're looking to you for that cue. And then Nathan came in. And he asked David similar questions. Do you know what your son, Adonijah, is doing? You had said that Solomon would be the next king. Did you change your mind? Is he going to be king instead? Because he's gone up and he's making moves for it. David reaffirmed his vow that Solomon would be the next king of Israel. And he took measures, steps to make that happen. He told the men loyal to him to take Solomon and have him ride on the king's mule down the Gihon, to anoint him as king over Israel, and then to bring him back and have him sit on David's throne. And that's what they did, which of course caused terror and panic for Adonijah and the men that were following him. Because they thought they were on the side of the future king, when all of a sudden they're realizing that things are eroding away beneath them. Now Solomon is declared king. Now there is all this noise and shouting and celebration in Jerusalem, and they're on the other side of this. They realize that their lives are the ones that are in danger now. All of his followers scatter. He himself goes to the altar and grabs onto the horns of the altar, unwilling to leave unless Solomon promises that he will not harm him. And Solomon agrees that if he is found worthy, if there is good in his heart, he will not be harmed. But if there is evil in his heart, he will be put to death. So Adonijah came before Solomon, paid homage to him, and was sent home in safety. Here we have a story in which we see the love of a mother for her son. We talked last week about Bathsheba. And so oftentimes we look at her in such a negative way. We put fault upon her for the demise of David, when in reality, she was very much the victim in the situation. The victim of David's lust. Her husband was killed. Her baby died because of what David did. She had no power in this situation. But for love of life and love of her son, she came before David and reminded him of the promise that he had made that Solomon would be the next king. She made a risky play. Nathan supported her, but she made a risky play to save her son, to save her, and to put him on the throne instead of Adonijah. The love of a mother. Now we also know that Solomon was very wise. As was mentioned, he had a dream. 1 Kings 3 tells us about this dream that he had in which the Lord came to Solomon and said, "Ask me for whatever that you want me to give you." And Solomon praised God for his love of his father David and the way he established his throne. He thanked God for the way that he'd been faithful in bringing Solomon to the throne now. And he said, "But I am young. And you have called me to lead these people and to judge for them. And I need help with that. How can I do this alone? Give me wisdom, a discerning heart to be able to decide right from wrong." And God was very pleased with this request. You have asked for wisdom. You have not asked for wealth. You have not asked for honor. You have not asked for your enemies to be killed. But you have asked for wisdom. And so I will give you wisdom. And I will also give you wealth and honor. And if you follow in my ways, I'll give you a long life as well. Solomon was wise. And he had these situations where these cases were brought before him, but I have to wonder if it was not only wisdom, but also the experience of his loving mother that helped him to discern the truth of the matter. Two prostitutes who were living together, each had a baby. But there was a dispute about the baby because one had died. They came before Solomon arguing, wanting this to be resolved. And the first woman said, I had a baby. 3 days later, this other woman had a baby as well. There's no one else in the house, it's just the two of us and the two babies. And one night, while she was sleeping, she rolled over on her baby and the baby died. Before morning, she came and brought the dead baby and laid it before me while I was sleeping. And took my live baby and laid it before her. When I woke up in the morning, I realized in the sun's early light that this was not my baby that was dead. That she had taken. And the woman who had done that interrupted and said, no, the live baby is my baby, the dead one is yours. And she responded back, no, the live baby is mine, the dead one is yours. And this arguing and bickering went back and forth before the king until he said, stop, someone bring me a sword. And when he had the sword, he said, divide the baby in two, they may each have half. At that moment, the mother, the true mother, her love won out. She realized that it was better for the baby to live and be in some other mother's arms than for this baby to be killed. She said, no, my Lord, please, allow the baby to live. Let that woman have him. I'd rather he's alive. Whereas the other mother, who had actually already lost her child, said, that seems fair to me. Go ahead, have the baby. Solomon was wise, and he had also experienced what it means to have love for a child. He experienced the love of his mother Bathsheba intervening on his behalf. And he knew at that moment that the live baby really belonged to the first mother. And he returned the baby to her. Solomon was wise. He also experienced the love of a mother and used that understanding to discern who was the true mother. But I have to confess to you, I have a really hard time preaching about Solomon on Mother's Day. It seems pretty ironic to me. Because for all of his wisdom, he also had his shadow side, didn't he? We all have our shadow sides. We all have our weaknesses. But Solomon certainly had his as well. We read later on in Scripture that he took on 700 wives of royal descent and 300 concubines. Now, if we do the math, that's 1,000 wives. And if we do the math, knowing that there are 365 days in 1 year, that's almost one wife a day for 3 years. Now, I can't imagine that he was able to pay any level of honor to these wives as mothers as what we here today would like to pay honor to the mothers and women in our lives. I also can't imagine that he had much of an easy time figuring out 1,000 gifts for all these women when I couldn't even hardly come up with one for a wife that I've been married to for almost 15 years. Solomon had his shadow side in which he took on all these wives. He knew, David had reminded him that he was supposed to live by the statutes of the Lord. He had written all of these proverbs and wisdom literature about good women and how important they were and how you should focus in on them. But he still chose to marry women of other nations, even though the instructions of the Lord said not to. He not only had his Egyptian wife, the daughter of the Pharaoh, he married women that were Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians. He married women of many different places who brought with them many different faiths along with them. And as they did that, he found himself opening himself up to their understandings of faith as well. Accepting their beliefs and setting aside his worship. And I have to wonder if perhaps a part of it was his own wisdom that got the better of him. I mean, we all have those moments, don't we, in which we believe that it'll happen to them, but it can't happen to me. Or we think that we're able to outsmart this situation, that we're able to overcome or figure out or rationalize a way out of these circumstances. To try and have our cake and to eat it too. But in Solomon's choice to have these 1,000 wives, he made a choice in which he let go of his worship of the Lord, his faithfulness to God, and instead began to worship many different gods. It was the scandal of Solomon. It didn't work. But then he was trying to outdo God in this situation. For me, I was just trying to outdo Lowe's. On Monday night, we knew the dryer was coming the next morning, so we spent time cleaning out our laundry room. We spent time cleaning out the mud room. And I even went ahead and took the plug off of the old dryer, hoping that I'd be able to put it on the new dryer and be able to save even more money when I returned them both to Lowe's the next day. Well, I'm used to delivery men coming, not coming on time, but I'm used to that meaning coming late, or not at all. Instead, they're supposed to come between 8 and noon on Tuesday. They came at 7:45 in the morning on Tuesday. So we scrambled around. They brought in the new dryer, took out the old dryer. Meanwhile, I put the old plug on the new dryer because liability, they can't do that themselves. They have to put it on. So I did that. And we got it all set. We got it all running. Now, I don't know about you, but in Beth's family, there's a rule that if it has a cord on it, it doesn't count as a gift. So when Beth thanked me for this new dryer, I said, well, happy Mother's Day. And she says, well, no, it's not a Mother's Day gift because it has a cord. Thankfully, I was able to remind her that dryers don't come with cords. So it could count as a Mother's Day gift. But anyway, on Tuesday then, I had to take Elam up to his art lesson in Belle Fountain. I took these cords along, and I went back to Lowe's to return them. I went to the merchandise desk, I took my receipt, I took the cords, and I returned them. And she said, well, I don't know why, but I can't put all this back on your Lowe's card. I'll have to give you this $25 merchandise card. I said, all right. So that's what she did. I said, now just to clarify, you can't put this back on the Lowe's card that I just got from you yesterday. But if I bought this on my own credit card, you'd be able to credit it all back to me then. I said, yeah, you just got to find a loophole. And it clicked. Yes, a loophole. I thanked her. I went back out to the van. I opened up the compartment in my van where I hid the cushions. I found a larger cushion, which was valued at just over $25. Pulled the receipt out of my wallet, and I went back into the store. And I said, I'd like to return this seat cushion. And I gave her the receipt and the cushion. And after she refunded the money back to my credit card, I said, I'd like to buy that cushion from you with this $25 Lowe's gift card. And a smile came across her face. She said, you found the loophole. I'd like to play a strategy game with you. I bet that would be fun. So she went ahead and she gave me the cushion back, used the $25 gift card, and I gave her the difference in it. And as she gave it to me, she says, thanks for playing the game today, and set me on my way. So I actually was able to beat the system, but like I said, I was only trying to beat Lowe's. Solomon, however, was trying to have his cake and eat it too, trying to beat out God in his wisdom. Instead of relying on God's wisdom, he began to rely on his own wisdom. He began to believe that he could have all of these wives and not be influenced by them, not be taken away from his faith in the Lord. But it didn't work that way. Instead, the scandal of Solomon was for all of his wisdom, for all of his understanding. He wasn't able to remain true and faithful to what God had called him to worshiping the God of the universe alone. He knew the love of his mother. He was wise. He was able to discern between the two mothers for the real baby, but he wasn't able to remain faithful in his beliefs and his worship of God. This morning, as we celebrate Mothers and Mother's Day, May we remember all the love that we've experienced and all the wisdom that we have learned from our mothers. And may we also be able to remain faithful to the Lord of the universe who has called us to worship Him alone.